Hey crew, it's Pitt, and I am back with some more Esoterica. We are diving back into the works of Mr. Manly Hall. This is the secret teachings of all ages. We are reading aloud and discussing as we go along the various topics that are brought to light by the text. It's not the format for everybody, but some people seem to enjoy it, so you are more than welcome to tag along. We are dealing with the theory and practice of alchemy today, so maybe I won't step on quite as many toes as I had in the past few videos. I am genuinely interested in alchemy. I have not practiced it before, but I am interested in it. I will one day begin working with it. I just haven't yet. This should be a good introduction into the practical side of it, right? The history is somewhat subjective, but the practical application I am quite interested in. So I may have things to add to the conversation today. I may not. It just depends how it goes. I try not to talk on things that I don't know about, and I try to talk about things that I do know about. And while I am interested in alchemy, I do not know a whole lot about it. But before we begin, if you are unfamiliar with me, any of my unconventional beliefs, or if at any point in time I lose you in the terminology, there are various playlists linked in this corner up here in the box down below, along with the original material, so that you can go back and understand exactly where I'm coming from and exactly what I'm talking about. I tend to put those types of explanations towards the beginning of the playlists. Now let's dive in and talk about the theory and practice of alchemy. Part 1. Alchemy, the secret art of the land of Chem, is one of the two oldest sciences known to the world. I'm going to leave a link down below to a YouTube channel with this name, who is doing some pretty decent work working through ancient Egyptian alchemy, the way that they might have done it. It is well worth looking at. I don't know whether he's correct. I am not a chemist, but he is, and so it is definitely worth checking out. The other is astrology. The beginnings of both extend back into the obscurity of prehistoric times. According to the earliest records extant, alchemy and astrology were considered as divinely revealed to man, so that by their aid he might regain his lost estate. According to old legends preserved by the rabbins, the angel at the Garden of Eden instructed Adam in the mysteries of the Kabbalah and of alchemy, promising that when the human race had thoroughly mastered the secret wisdom concealed within these inspired arts, the curse of the forbidden fruit would be removed, and man might again enter into the garden of the Lord. That is completely against the accounts in Genesis. It is completely against the further teachings as we go along into the book. So you are more than welcome to believe whatever you wish to believe. I do not believe in these particular control systems instituted by these particular people, but you are more than welcome to. I have a little bit more knowledge on a little bit more things, and I seem to understand a little bit better than others that blood sacrifice is wrong in almost every single instance, and therefore anything based upon blood sacrifice is fundamentally flawed, and you cannot build a house upon shifting sands. I believe somebody somewhere said that one time. As man took upon himself coats of skins, physical bodies, at the time of his fall, so these sacred sciences were brought by him into the lower worlds, incarnated in dense vehicles, through which their spiritual transcendent natures could no longer manifest themselves. Therefore, they were considered as being dead or lost. The earthly body of alchemy is chemistry. For chemists do not realize that half of the Book of Torah is forever concealed behind the veil of Isis, see the tarot, and that so long as they study only material elements, they can at best discover but half the mystery. Astrology has crystallized into astronomy, whose votaries ridicule the dreams of ancient seers and sages, deriding their symbols as meaningless products of superstition. Nevertheless, the intelligentsia of the modern world can never pass beyond the veil which divides the seen from the unseen, except in the way appointed, the mysteries. I am not a chemist, I am not an alchemist, I am not an astrologer, but I have pierced the veil. I have seen the other side in a way that most people want to think that they have. They may have, but the fruit does not bear out. They have not shown through the other side that they actually know what they're talking about. so I take it with a big grain of salt. But astrology is definitely not one of the keys necessary to do that. Believing that the planets influence your life is something, again, that you are more than welcome to believe. But I do not believe that Mercury retrograde means that everybody on the planet is going to go through the exact same thing. I think that's a little bit silly, in the same way that I believe that the other control systems are silly too. Astrology, much like Christianity and Judaism, is holding you back from something. What is life? What is intelligence? What is force? These are the problems to the solution of which the ancients consecrated their temples of learning. Who shall say that they did not answer those questions? Who would recognize the answers if given? Is it possible that under the symbols of alchemy and astrology lies concealed a wisdom so abstruse that the mind of this race is not qualified to conceive its principles? Now that is possible, right? We've talked before, we'll talk again, about how these symbols can absolutely mean something else. Being born a Gemini does not have a whole lot of bearing on my life. The way that I was raised does. The morals and ethics of the society around me, that has a lot to do with the way that I act. The upbringing that I had, as rough as it was, had a lot to determine who I became. The sun being in a particular position in the sky, not so much, right? I don't believe that. It is possible, right? I have not had anything that actually encourages me to believe that. Except for, there's an app that you can get on your phone called The Pattern, and it has been fairly good at reading energies. And I do believe that you can read energies. I don't believe that the stars necessarily mean what other people think they mean, but I am open to things if it is proven to be true, right? If you can prove that this influence is actually making this happen, then I'll listen to it. I will even adopt it. I will make a whole video about it. But as it stands, the horoscopes that you read in your newspaper are not true. They are not true. They are just simply not true. I don't know no other way to put that. And I said I wasn't going to step on toes. The Chaldeans, Phoenicians, and Babylonians were familiar with the principles of alchemy, as were many of the early Oriental races. It was practiced in Greece and Rome, was the master science of the Egyptians. Chem was an ancient name for the land of Egypt, and both the words alchemy and chemistry are a perpetual reminder of the priority of Egypt's scientific knowledge. According to the fragmentary writings of those early peoples, alchemy was to them no speculative art. They implicitly believed in the multiplication of metals, and in the face of their reiterations, both the scholar and the materialist should be more kindly in their considerations of alchemical theorems. Evolutionists trace the unfoldment of the arts and sciences up through the growing intelligence of the prehistoric man, while others, of a transcendental point of view, like to consider them as being direct revelations from God. As someone who has had direct revelations from God, I do not discount that in the slightest. I just don't have the evidence of it, right? We don't have a philosopher's stone. People still die from cancer. There is all kinds of things that is purported to have been solved by this that has not. And so I do not lend the credence to things that we do not have reproducible effects from. Many interesting solutions to the riddle of alchemy's origin have been advanced. One is that alchemy was revealed to man by the mysterious Egyptian demigod, Hermes Trismegistus. I have an entire series of videos that are related to Hermes Trismegistus, where we talk about mental alchemy in a very real way. We talk about enlightenment in a very real way, no matter who that may piss off. And so, this sublime figure, looming through the mist of time and bearing in his hand the immortal emerald, is credited by the Egyptians as being the author of all the arts and sciences. In honor of him, all scientific knowledge was gathered under the general title of the Hermetic Arts. When the body of Hermes was interred in the valley of Hebron, the divine emerald was buried with it. Many centuries afterwards, the emerald was discovered, according to one version, by an Arabian initiate. according to another by Alexander the Great, king of Macedon, by means of this power, the power of this emerald, upon which were the mysterious inscriptions of the thrice great Hermes, 13 sentences in all, Alexander conquered all the then known world. Not having conquered himself, however, he ultimately failed. Regardless of his glory and power, the prophecies of the talking trees were fulfilled, and Alexander was cut down in the midst of his triumph. There are persistent rumors to the effect that Alexander was an initiate of higher order who failed because of his inability to withstand the temptations of power. E.Y. Kennelly, quoting from the Cosmodromium of Dr. Goblin Persona, describes the incident of Alexander and the talking trees, into the presence of which the king of Macedon is said to have been brought while on his campaign in India. And now Alexander marched into other quarters equally dangerous, at one time over the tops of mountains, at another through dark valleys, in which his army was attacked by serpents and wild beasts, until after 300 days he came into a most pleasant mountain, on whose sides hung chains or ropes of gold. This mountain had 2,050 steps, all of the purest sapphire, by which one could ascend to the summit, and near this Alexander encamped. And on a day, Alexander with his 12 princes ascended by the aforenamed steps to the top of the mountain, and found there a palace marvelously beautiful, having 12 gates and 70 windows of the purest gold, and it was called the Palace of the Sun. And there was in it a temple of all gold, before whose gates were set vine trees, bearing branches of carbuncles and pearls. And Alexander and his princes, having entered the palace, found there a man lying on a golden bedstead. He was very stately and beautiful in appearance, and his head and beard were white as snow. Then Alexander and his princes bent the knee to the sage, who spake thus: Alexander, thou shalt now see what no earthly man hath ever before seen or heard. To whom Alexander made the answer, O sage, most happy, how dost thou know me? He replied, Before the wave of the deluge covered the face of the earth, I knew thy works, he added. Wouldst thou behold the most hallowed trees of the sun and moon, which announce all future things? Alexander made answer, It is well, my lord, greatly do we long to see them. Then the sage said, Put away your rings and ornaments, and take off your shoes, and follow me. And Alexander did so, and choosing out 3 from the princes, and leaving the rest to await his return, he followed the sage, and came to the trees of the sun and moon. The tree of the sun had leaves of red gold, and the tree of the moon has leaves of silver, and they are very great. And Alexander, at the suggestion of the sage, questioned the trees, asking if he should return in triumph to Macedon. To which the trees gave answer, No, but that he should live yet another year and 8 months, after which he should die by a poisoned cup. And when he inquired who was he who would give him that poison, he received no reply, and the tree of the moon said to him that his mother, after a most shameful and unhappy death, should lie long unburied, but that happiness was in store for his sisters. See the book of Enoch, the second messenger of God. We have dealt with the book of Enoch. I do not remember seeing that in there. Maybe it's a different book of Enoch. In all probability, the so-called talking trees were merely strips of wood with tables of letters upon them, by means of which oracles were evoked. At one time, books written upon wood were called talking trees. The difficulty in deciding the origin of alchemy is directly due to ignoring the lost continent of Atlantis. The great arcanum was the most prized of the secrets of the Atlantean priestcraft, and when the land of Atlas sank, Hierophants of the Fire mystery brought the formula to Egypt, where it remained for centuries in the possession of the sages and philosophers. It gradually moved into Europe, where its secrets are still preserved intact. This is interesting here. I want to make sure that we understand that this entire section, right, this sage talking to Alexander, has nothing to do with alchemy. Like, it just hit me that had nothing to do with alchemy. Like, there was a guy who lived a very long time, and you had to walk up steps of sapphire to a palace built on top of a mountain with 70 windows made of pure gold. I am sure that is absolutely a truthful statement. I'm positive that that's a truthful statement. That is exactly what happened. Oh wait, we did that one. All right, we're at the end? No. Those disagreeing with the legend of Hermes and his emerald tablet see in the 200 angels who descended upon the mountains, as described by the prophet Enoch, the first instructors in the alchemical art. Regardless of its originator, it was left to the Egyptian priests to preserve alchemy for the modern world. Egypt, because of the color of its earth, was called the Black Empire, and is referred to in the Old Testament as the Land of Darkness. By reason of its possible origin there, alchemy has long been known as the black art, not in the sense of evil, but in the sense of that darkness which has always enshrouded its secret processes. I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of exception with this because, as far as I know, the predominant color of the earth in Egypt is sand. Sand is not dark by any stretch of the imagination. It is darker than white, I guess, but it is definitely not dark enough to be called the Black Empire. The land around the Nile, okay, I'll grant you that. The overflow, the fertile, okay, but the predominant color there is going to be brown, tan, however you want to label it, right? I've got a whole theory about why there's so many wars in the Middle East. You want to hear it? They fight over green shit because there is none. And for the most part, you walk out and you see nothing but brown. The ground is brown. The houses are brown. The people are brown. Everything around is brown, except for that one tree right there. We're all going to fight over that one tree. That seems to be what is going on over there. I have walked in several of these countries, and there is a whole lot of brown, not a lot of black, not a lot of green, but a whole lot of brown. During the Middle Ages, alchemy was not only a philosophy and a science, but also a religion. Those who rebelled against the religious limitations of their day concealed their philosophic teachings under the allegory of gold making. In this way, they preserved their personal liberty and were ridiculed rather than persecuted. Alchemy is a threefold art, its mystery well symbolized by a triangle. Let's set off some other people, right? Its symbol is 3 times 3. 3 elements or processes in 3 worlds or spheres. The 3 times 3 is part of the mystery of the 33rd degree of Freemasonry, for 33 is 3 times 3, which is 9, the number of esoteric man, and the number of emanations from the root of the divine tree. No, not true. It is the number of worlds nourished by the 4 rivers that pour out of the divine mouth, as the verbum fiat. Beneath the so-called symbolism of alchemy is concealed a magnificent concept, for this ridiculed and despised craft still preserves intact the triple key to the gates of eternal life. Realizing, therefore, that alchemy is a mystery in 3 worlds, the divine, the human, and the elemental, it can easily be appreciated why the sages and philosophers created and evolved an intricate allegory to conceal their wisdom. Alchemy is the science of multiplication and is based upon the... Wait, before we go any further, let's go back and look at this. Right, the leaves of Hermes' sacred tree. I try to finish the paragraph and then go back to the diagram, but sometimes I forget. Right, so this is the illustration here. This is the different types, right? You have convection, purification, imbitation, fermentation, fixation, multiplication, protection, filtration. I don't know what this one. Solution, filtration. I'm sure it's about to tell us. Let's just go ahead and we'll go into this. Redrawn from an original manuscript dated 1577. In his Key to Alchemy, Samuel Norton divides into 14 parts the processes or states through which the alchemical substances pass from the time they are first placed in the test tube until ready as a medicine for plants, minerals, or men. Solution, the act of passing from a gaseous or solid condition into one of liquidity. Filtration, the mechanical separation of a liquid from the undissolved particles suspended in it. Evaporation, the changing or converting from a liquid or solid state into a vaporous state with the aid of heat. Distillation, an operation by which a volatile liquid may be separated from substances which it holds in solution. Separation, the operation of disuniting or decomposing substances. Rectification, the process of refining or purifying any substance by repeated distillation. Calcination, the conversion into a powder or calx by the action of heat. Expulsion of the volatile substance from a matter. Commixation, the blending of different ingredients into new compounds or mass. Purification through putrefaction, disintegration by spontaneous decomposition, decay by artificial means. Inhibition, the process of holding back or restraining. Fermentation, the conversion of organic substances into new compounds in the presence of a ferment. I've practiced that one several times. Fixation, the act or process of ceasing to be a fluid and becoming firm, state of being fixed. Multiplication, the act or process of multiplying or increasing in number, the state of being multiplied. There you go, use the definition in the definition. Projection, the process of turning the base metals into gold. Okay. Alchemy is the science of multiplication and is based upon the natural phenomena of growth. Nothing from nothing comes is an extremely ancient adage. That includes manifestation. Alchemy is not the process of making something from nothing, it's the process of increasing and improving that which already exists. If a philosopher were to state that a living man could be made from a stone, the unenlightened would probably exclaim, "Impossible!" Thus they would reveal their ignorance, for to the wise it is known that in every stone is the seed of a man. The philosopher might declare that a universe could be made out of a man, but the foolish would regard this as an impossibility, not realizing that a man is a seed from which the universe may be brought forth. Okay, let's stop for a second. Existence is a vibration. The harmonic of life is a very real thing. There are stages to growth, and there are stages of existence. I firmly believe that. I believe that there are 8 of them, and we exist in the 5th one, right? The first one is elemental. And in the way that it is assimilated into the second one, which is plants, this is a possibility, right? It is possible to incorporate into yourself the elements themselves and thus make them part of a living man. But you are not in any way, shape, or form ever going to animate a rock with consciousness. Now, we are well on the way to the edge of the apocalypse through the AI revolution. And here's the thing. AI cannot understand art. They cannot understand poetry. They can spit you out a bunch of words that make a rhyme, but they do not understand the fundamentals of it. They can't count fingers. So you can animate a rock, right? You can distill a rock into its rawest form and extract from it the metals that you can create a robot. And you can put an artificial intelligence into the robot and it can act semi-autonomously according to its programming. But it cannot break the programming that it has. It cannot create a new thought on its own. It cannot understand the things which you feed into it. So you are not making a living man. There is no means by which you are able to ensoul something else. Even the reproductive process by which an ensoulment happens is not regulated by you. You don't get to decide that. I am not a big fan of IVF for that very same reason. That is using chemical processes to attempt to create a soul, and I'm not a fan of it. It might be part of the reason why we're having the problems that we're having today. That means that some people are going to have to live without a child, and that is hard for some people to accept. I didn't have to have that fight, right? I had my 2 kids, and so I am blessed by that, and it doesn't mean that I am against the people who do IVF. I absolutely understand the reasoning for it. I just think it might be a bad idea. I am the same way about birth control, though, right? Me and my wife did not practice birth control alone because if it was up to God to have a child, it didn't matter if you were taking a pill or not. He was going to make it happen. It did. And so we didn't deal with birth control on a very large level. That is the chemical alteration to prevent the ensoulment of a child. And that is a whole separate problem. And you don't have to agree with me. I am not condemning you if you do. But I am pointing out you cannot ensoul an inanimate object. You cannot ascend one of the animate objects, right? These two dogs laying here behind me sleeping, I cannot create in them understanding on a human level. In the same way, you cannot in any way, shape, or form animate a rock. I'm sorry if that steps on a toe, but I'm not sorry if that steps on your toe. You are the seed of the universe, of as above, so below. But there are rules to this incarnation, and you cannot violate them, no matter how much you may wish to do so. God is the within and the without of all things. The Supreme One manifests himself through growth, which is an urge from within outward, a struggle for expression and manifestation. There is no greater miracle in the growing and multiplication of gold by the alchemist than in a tiny mustard seed producing a bush many thousand times the size of the seed. If a mustard seed produces 100,000 times its own size and weight, when planted in an entirely different substance, the earth, why should not the seed of gold be multiplied 100,000 times by art when that seed is planted in its earth, the base metals, and nourished artificially by the secret process of alchemy? And again, I have said it before and I will say it again, right? I want to practice alchemy, but I do not believe that I am just going to randomly create gold out of nothing. It is possible to chemically isolate isotopes. It is possible to chemically transmute things. That is a real possibility. If you mix an acid and a base together, you're going to get a chemical process that creates something entirely new. It is possible to refine from existing resources the thing which you seek. So you can go out and you can collect dirt, just random dirt from out here in your yard, wherever you happen to be. And there is a process by which you can separate the gold isotopes, which are absolutely contained within all creation. But the refinement of it is going to take you a very long time and a lot of raw materials. You are not going to be able to just chemically alter that. There is a process by which they are, in fact, altering metal into another metal. They are changing lead into gold in laboratories. It is real. But they're doing that through particle collidement and changing the fundamental structure through radioactive means, and it is extremely resource intensive. It costs way more to get that gold than it is worth in the long run, right? The process and learning the process is a step that we find the investment worthy of, but it is never going to pay for itself. It's just not possible. There is a reason why gold is formed the way that it is formed, and for us to change it is extremely resource intensive, and this is not the least part of this argument, and foolish. There's no reason for it. There is no reason for it. There's no reason for it. You do not need to create gold out of a base metal. Mental alchemy, yes. Distillation of medicines, go for it. The things that you want to do that are within the realm of this world, there is a reason to pursue them. We have chemistry and it works, right? Alchemy was the basis of chemistry. It is the thing which they corrupted to turn into something else, but it is the basis of chemistry. That is entirely possible. Some of these other things, not so much. Now, we're going to get into some more of the other stuff, I'm sure, but alchemy teaches that God is in everything, that he is the one universal spirit manifesting through an infinity of forms. God, therefore, is the spiritual seed planted in the dark earth, the material universe. By art, it is possible so to grow and expand the seed that the entire universe of substance is tinctured thereby and becomes like unto the seed, pure gold. In the spiritual nature of man, this is termed regeneration. In the material body of the elements, it is called transmutation. As it is in the spiritual and material universes, so it is in the intellectual world. Wisdom cannot be imparted to an idiot, because the seed of wisdom is not within him. But wisdom may be imparted to an ignorant person. However ignorant he may be, because the seed of wisdom exists in him and can be developed by art and culture. Hence, a philosopher is not only an ignorant man within whose nature of projection has taken place. Through art, the process of learning, the whole mass of base metals, the mental body of ignorance, was transmuted into pure gold, wisdom. Those I can deal with, for it was tinctured with understanding. If then, through faith and proximity to God, the consciousness of man may be transmuted from base animal desires, represented by the masses of the planetary metals, into a pure, golden, and godly consciousness, illumined and redeemed, and the manifesting God within that one increased from a tiny spark to a great and glorious being. If, also, the base metals of mental ignorance can, through proper endeavor and training, be transmuted into transcendent genius and wisdom, why is the process in two worlds or spheres of application not equally true in the third? If both their spiritual and mental elements of the universe can be multiplied in their expression, then by the law of analogy, that is not one of the laws, the material elements of the universe can also be multiplied, if the necessary process can be ascertained. That is false logic, calling upon a law that does not exist. That which is true in the superior is true in the inferior. If alchemy can be a great spiritual fact, then it can also be a great material fact. If it can take place in the universe, it can take place in man, and if it can take place in man, it can take place in the plants and minerals. Again, false logic. If one thing in the universe grows, then everything in the universe grows. Not true. If one thing can be multiplied, then all things can be multiplied. Again, not true. For the superior agrees with the inferior, and the inferior agrees with the superior. But as the way for the redemption of the soul is concealed by the mysteries, so the secrets for the redemption of the metals are also concealed, that they may not fall into the hands of the profane, and thereby become perverted. If any would grow metals, he must first learn the secrets of the metals. He must realize that all metals, like all stones, plants, animals, and universes, grow from seeds, and that those seeds are already in the body of the substance, the womb of the world virgin. For the seed of man is in the universe before he is born, or grows, and as the seed of the plant exists for all time through the plant's life, but a part of the time, and as the seed of the plant exists for all time, though the plants live but a part of that time, so the seeds of spiritual gold and material gold are ever present in all things. The atoms are present in all things, and that would be the seed, right? That is the only seed by which you would be able to make metals grow, is through atomic interference. And yes, I have gold in me, you have gold in you, but to get it out of us requires a lot. The metals grow throughout the ages because life is imparted to them from the sun. They grow imperceptibly in form like tiny shrubs, for everything grows in some way. Only the methods of growth differ according to kind and magnitude. Heat and pressure cause metals to form. One of the great axioms is, within everything is the seed of everything. Although by the simple processes of nature it may remain latent for many centuries, or its growth may be exceedingly slow. Therefore, every grain of sand contains not only the seed of the precious metals as well as the seed of the priceless gems, but also the seeds of the sun, moon, and stars. As within the nature of man is reflected the entire universe in miniature, so in each grain of sand, each drop of water, each tiny particle of cosmic dust, are concealed all the parts and elements of cosmos in the form of tiny seed germs, so minute that even the most powerful microscope cannot detect them. Trillions of times smaller than the ion or electron, these seeds, unrecognizable and incomprehensible, await the time assigned them for growth and expression. Consider the monads of Leibniz. There are two methods whereby the growth may be accomplished. The first is by nature, for nature is an alchemist, forever achieving the apparently impossible. The second is by art, and through art is produced a comparatively short time that which requires nature almost endless periods to duplicate. The true philosopher, desiring to accomplish the magnum opus, patterns his conduct according to the laws of nature, recognizing that the art of alchemy is merely a method copied from nature, but with the aid of certain secret formula greatly shortened by being correspondingly intensified. Nature, in order to achieve her miracles, must work through either extensiveness or intensiveness. The extensive processes of nature are such that are used in the transmutation of the pitch of black carbon into diamonds, requiring millions of years of natural hardening. The intensive process is art, which is ever the faithful servant of nature, as Dr. A.D. says, supplementing her every step and cooperating with her in all ways. So, in this philosophic work, nature and art ought so lovingly to embrace each other, as that art may not require what nature denies, nor nature deny what may be perfected by art. From nature, assenting, she demeans herself obediently to every artist, whilst by their industry she is helped, not hindered. Dr. A.D. in his Chemical collections. By means of this art, the seed which is within the soul of a stone may be made to germinate so intensively that in a few moments a diamond is grown from the seed of itself. If the seed of the diamond were not in the marble, granite, and sand, a diamond could not be grown therefrom. A diamond cannot be grown from marble, granite, or sand. It can be grown from carbon. We do have a process by which we make artificial diamonds. If you were unaware, that is a thing that happens. It uses carbon as a source. It does not use marble, granite, or sand because those are made from silica and diamonds are made from carbon. That is two completely different substances. And if you are unaware of that, then you vastly need to revisit your chemistry. But, as a seed is within all these things, a diamond may be grown out of any other substance in the universe. Not true. In substances, however, it is easier to perform this miracle because in them these germs have already been long fertilized and are thus more nearly prepared for the vivifying process of the art. Likewise, to teach some men wisdom is easier than to teach others, for some already have a foundation upon which to work, while in others the thinking faculties are entirely dormant. Alchemy, therefore, should be regarded as the art of increasing and bringing into perfect flower with the greatest possible expedition. Nature may accomplish her desired end, or because of the destructiveness exercised by one element over another, she may not. But with the aid of the true art, nature always accomplishes her end, for this art is not subject either to the wastings of time or to the vandalism of elemental reactions. In his History of Chemistry, James Campbell Brown, late professor of chemistry in the University of Liverpool, sums up the ends which alchemists sought to achieve in the following paragraphs. This, therefore, was the general aim of the alchemists, to carry out in the laboratory, as far as possible, the processes which nature carried out in the interior of the earth. 7 leading problems occupied their attention. The preparation of a compound named elixir, magisterium medicine, or philosopher's stone, which possessed the property of transmuting the baser metals into gold and silver, and of performing many other marvelous operations. The creation of homunculi, or living beings, of which many wonderful but incredible tales are told. The preparation of the alkahest, or universal solvent, which dissolved every substance which was immersed in it. Palingenesis, or the restoration of a plant from its ashes. Had they succeeded in this, they would have hoped to have been able to raise the dead. Professor Brown takes a great deal for granted. The preparation of Spiritus Mundi, the mystic substance possessing many powers, the principle of which was its capacity of dissolving gold. The extraction of the quintessence, or active principle of all substances, and the preparation of aurum potable, liquid gold, a sovereign remedy, because gold, being itself perfect, could produce perfection in the human frame. All 7 seem to be unattainable. Alchemical symbolism. In alchemy, there are 3 symbolic substances: mercury, sulfur, and salt. To these was added a 4th mysterious life principle called azoth. Concerning the first 3, Herr von Dwelling has written, there are 3 basic chemical substances which are called by the philosophers salt, sulfur, and mercury, but which are not to be confounded in any way with the crude salt, sulfur, and mercury taken from the earth or secured from the apothecary. Salt, sulfur, and mercury each has a triune nature, for each of these substances contains in reality also the other 2 substances, according to the secret arcanum of the wise. The body of salt is, therefore, threefold, namely salt, sulfur, and mercury. But in the body of salt, one of the 3, salt, predominates. Mercury is likewise composed of salt, sulfur, and mercury, with the latter element predominating. Sulfur, similarly, is actually salt, sulfur, and mercury, with sulfur predominating. These 9 divisions, 3 times 3 plus azoth, the mysterious universal life force, equals 10. The sacred decad of Pythagoras. Concerning the nature of azoth, there is much controversy. Some view it as the invisible eternal fire, others as electricity, still others as magnetism. Transcendentalism referred to it as the astral light. I'm not even going to get into how wrong that is, right? Salt, sulfur, and mercury are all fundamentally different, right? There is no table salt that you're going to pull from mercury, right? There is possibly some distillation process by which you could remove the liquid from mercury. I don't know that that is possible. I highly doubt that it is. But if there were some process and it formed something that resembled salt, it would not be salt. You would not be able to put it on your table. You would not be able to put it in your food, right? Salt implies something specific, right? Sodium chloride. It is definitely a thing. It is something that is present in most living things. It is even possible that you can extract it from sulfur, but I doubt very seriously that you are extracting it from pure mercury or even from pure sulfur, right? Sulfur is its own element. It can be mixed with salt, and there can be salt contained within it, but it is not salt. It is separate. To call it the same is a little bit wild to me, right? Now, we got salt, we've got sulfur, and we've got mercury. That is the triune, right? The body, the soul, and the being, the spirit, the becoming, the fire, whatever you want to call it. That is a thing, but they are not the same things. I have to point that out. And I'm not against allegory, but this is not implying allegory. This is implying fact. And the allegory and fact are 2 completely separate things. The universe is surrounded by the sphere of the stars. Beyond that sphere is the sphere of the Shamayim, which is the divine fiery water, the first outflow of the Word of God, the flaming river pouring from the presence of the eternal. Shamayim, the fiery androgynous water, divides. The fire becomes the solar fire, and water becomes the lunar water. Shamayim is the universal mercury, sometimes called azoth, the measureless spirit of life. The spiritual, fiery, original water, Shamayim, comes through Eden, in Hebrew, vapor, and pours itself into 4 main rivers, the elements. This is the river of living water, azoth, the fiery, mercurial essence, that flows out from the throne of God and the Lamb. In this Eden, vaporous essence or mist, is the spiritual earth, incomprehensible and intangible, or the dust, Aphar, out of which God formed Adam min Hadamah, the spiritual body of man, which body must sometime become revealed. In another part of his writings, von Welling also says that there was no material universe until Lucifer, attempting to perform the cosmic alchemy, misused the Shamayim, or the divine fire. In order to re-establish the Shamayim, which Lucifer had perverted, the universe was formed as a means of liberating it from the dark cloud, within which it was locked by the failure of Lucifer's attempt to control it. These statements clearly emphasize the fact that the early philosophers recognized in the Bible a book of chemical and alchemical formula. That's not true. It is essential that this point be kept in mind at all times. Woe to that seeker who accepts as literal the rambling allegories of the alchemists. Such as one can never enter the inner sanctuary of truth. Elias Ashmole, in his Theatrum Chemicum Britannicum, thus describes the methods employed by the alchemists to conceal their true doctrines. Their chiefest study was to wrap up their secrets in fables, and spin out their fancies in veils and shadows, whose radii seems to extend every way, yet so that they meet in a common center and point only at one thing. The fact that the scriptures reveal a hidden knowledge, if considered allegorically, is clearly demonstrated by a parable describing King Solomon, his wives, concubines, and virgins, which parable occurs in Geheimfiguren den Rosenkreutzer, published in Altona in 1785. Dr. Hartman, who translated part of his work into English, declared that the wives of Solomon represented the arts, the concubines the sciences, and the virgins the still unrevealed secrets of nature, that is, self-insertion. By order of the king, the virgins were forced to remove their veils, thus signifying that by means of wisdom, Solomon, the mystic arts were forced to disclose their hidden parts to the philosopher, while to the uninitiated world, only the outside garments were visible, such as the mystery of the veil of Isis. I take extreme exception with that. I do not believe that at all. Solomon was not a righteous man. He was not by his own laws and edicts that were given to him by God. He was directly in contradiction to the will of God on several points throughout his life. Not the least of which was having concubines and virgins, right? Wives, okay, you can make the argument that plurality of wives was divine. I'm not gonna dive into that. But having wives and concubines and some virgins, that is beyond the express will of God, right? That is adultery. Straight off the top, off the top, if you are not married to the person that you are sleeping with and you are married to someone else, you are committing adultery. It is really that simple. So Solomon was at best an adulterer. He was also a murderer. He was also a dealer in arms. These are things that are indisputable. They are recorded in the book. They are just spun in a completely different way than I tell them, right? I tell them as they say it. Right, as it's written out. I don't put the apologies on there. Well, he really meant that. No. Oh, well, it was really the divine will of God. No, the divine will of God was not that he killed all of his brothers and sisters and assumed the throne. That was just not part of God's plan. It wasn't. And that was through his mother, who was, by the way, not Jewish. Let's go into that real quick. Sidebar. David was born to a non-Jewish woman, which is how the divinity passes, or the chosenness passes through, is through the matriarchal line. Well, David was not from that line, and neither was Solomon. Neither one of them were actually technically Jewish according to the rules of Judaism. Go back and watch the Unconventional Bible Study if you don't know what I'm talking about. Chronicles will probably get you there. As the alchemist must do his work in 4 worlds simultaneously if he would achieve the magnum opus, a table showing the analogies of the 3 principles in the 4 worlds may clarify the relationship which the various parts bear to each other. The early masters of the art of alchemical symbolism did not standardize either their symbols or their terms. Thus, it required great familiarity with the subject combined with considerable intuitive power to unravel some of the enigmatical statements. The third and fourth divisions of the following table are given alternative renderings, owing to the fact that some authors did not draw a clear line between spirit and soul. According to the scriptures, spirit is indestructible, but soul is destructible. Obviously, then, they are not synonymous. It is clearly stated that the soul that sinneth it shall die, but the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. That is the least of the contradictions in that book, and it is indeed a contradiction. It is one of those things that should make you doubt the things that are written in there, but instead, we get an apology. That happens repeatedly throughout the entirety of that book. The table of analogies, as clearly as they can be established, is as follows. The triune power in four worlds. First column is a world of, then Father, Son, and Mother. Line 1, God, Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. Line 2, man, spirit, soul, and body. Or line 3, elements, air, fire, and water. Chemicals, mercury, sulfur, and salt. The alternative renderings of 3 and 4 are 3. Elemental elements, fire, air, and water, which is the transposition of fire and air, and chemicals, sulfur, mercury, and salt, which is the transcription of mercury and sulfur. Paracelsus made a different arrangement, somewhat Aristotelian, in which the 3 phases of the triune God are omitted, combining only the elements of the second, third, and fourth worlds. The world of man, spirit, soul, and body, the world of elements, air, water, and earth, and the world of chemicals, sulfur, mercury, and salt. The main point, however, is proved. The alchemical philosophers used these symbols of salt, sulfur, and mercury to represent not only chemicals, but the spiritual and invisible principles of God, man, and the universe. The 3 substances, salt, sulfur, and mercury, existing in 4 worlds, is shown in the table, sum up to the sacred number 12. As these 12 are the foundations of the great work, they are called in Revelation the 12 foundation stones of the sacred city. Not true. In line with the same idea, Pythagoras asserted that the dodecahedron, or 12-faced symmetrical geometric solid, was the foundation of the universe. May there not be a relation, also, between this mysterious 3 times 4 and the 4 parties of 3, which in the legend of the 3rd degree of Freemasonry go forth to the 4 angels of the cherubim, the composite creature of 4 parts. This is a table of medieval alchemical symbols. Right? We're not going to try to read all of that, but from Valentine's, the Last Will and Testament. Hermeticists use the curious symbol shown in this rare table to represent various chemical elements and alchemical processes. The full meaning of these strange characters has never been revealed, the characters concealing effectually within their own forms the occult secrets regarding the spiritual nature of the metals and elements which they represent. In their allegories, the alchemists also wed human, animal, and plant emblems. Sometimes weird composite figures, such as the dragon, the winged serpent, the unicorn, and the phoenix. In almost every case, they symbolized gold, as a king with a crown on his head, and often with a scepter in his hand. Sometimes they depicted him with the ace of the solar disk surrounded by rays. Silver was personified as a woman, who they called the queen. She wore no crown, but often stood upon a lunar crescent, much after the fashion of the Madonna, self-insertion. Mercury was typified as a youth with wings, often with 2 heads, carrying serpents or sometimes the caduceus. Lead they symbolized by an old man with a scythe in his hand, iron by a soldier dressed in armor. To aqua fortis was given the curious name, the ostrich's stomach, and to the attainment of the great work, they assigned the symbol of the phoenix, sitting upon a nest of fire. The union of elements they symbolized by a marriage, the process of putrefaction by a skull, antimony by a dragon. The following table shows the angles to which the parties of three, salt, sulfur, and mercury, go in search of Chiron. The four corners of creation, then east, south, west, and north. So, the fixed signs of the zodiac, Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus. The parts of the cherubim, man, lion, eagle, and bull. The four seasons, spring, summer, autumn, and winter. The ages of man, childhood, youth, maturity, and old age. The stages of existence, birth, growth, maturity, decay. The parts of a man's constitution, spirit, soul, mind, and body. And the four elements, air, fire, water, and earth. One more table should prove of interest to Masonic scholars. One showing the relationship existing between the three substances, salt, sulfur, and mercury, and certain symbols with which Masons are familiar. This table also has an alternative rendering based upon the interblending of philosophic principles, which are difficult, if not impossible, to separate into chronological order. 1. The three lights, stellar fire, solar fire, and lunar fire. The three grand masters, Hiram, Solomon, and Hiram of Tyre. The geometric solids, sphere, pyramid, and cube. There are more than that. Alchemical substances, mercury, sulfur, and salt. The alternative rendering of number 2 is the three grandmasters being Solomon, Hiram, and Hiram of Tyre, which is the transposition of Solomon and Hiram. The alchemy, in alchemy, is found again the perpetuation of the universal mystery. For as surely as Jesus died upon the cross, Chiron, is at the west gate of the temple, Orpheus on the banks of the river Hebros, Christina on the banks of the Ganges, and Osiris in the coffin prepared by Typhon. So in alchemy, unless the elements first die, the great work cannot be achieved. The stages of the alchemical processes can be traced in the lives and activities of nearly all the world's saviors and teachers. That's some self-insertion, and also among the mythologies of several nations. It is said in the Bible that, except a man be born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. That is not alchemy. And that can be considered mental alchemy, but it is definitely not related to physical alchemy with chemicals. It is not. We did the Bible study. I can tell you exactly what this means. This is actually misinterpreted in the Bible. It is talking about the path to enlightenment, which somebody out there really doesn't like me using that word, and that is perfectly fine. This has to do with enlightenment. You have to literally be okay with death before you can achieve that last step of enlightenment. And you don't even know what I'm talking about if you haven't been on the process. But that's okay. You can believe that it's died to the world if you want to. You can believe that the way that it is spun is right, even though it is most definitely not. And I don't deal in definites very often. In alchemy, it is declared that without putrefaction, the great work cannot be accomplished. What is it that dies on the cross, is buried in the tomb of mysteries, and that also dies in the retort and becomes black with putrefaction? Also, what is it that does the same thing in the nature of man, that he may rise again, phoenix-like, from his own ashes? Caput mortuum. The solution in the alchemical retort, if digested a certain length of time, will turn into a red elixir, which is called the universal medicine. It resembles a fiery water and is luminous in the dark. During the process of digestion, it passes through many colors, which has given rise to it be called the peacock, because of its iridescence during one of the periods of its digestion. If the augmentations of its power be carried too far, the test tube containing the substance will explode and vanish as dust. This commonly occurs and is the greatest danger involved in the preparation of the medicine for men and metals. If developed too far, it will also seep through the glass, for there is no physical container sufficiently strong to hold it. The reason for this is that it is no longer a substance, but a divine essence, partaking of the interpenetrative power of divinity. When it is properly developed, this universal solvent in liquid form will dissolve into itself all other metals. It's probably an acid. In this high state of universal salt is a liquid fire. This salt dissolves with the proper amounts of any metal and run through the different stages of digestion and rotations of augmentations will eventually become a medicine for the transmuting of inferior metals. And again, we still do not have that process. The True Way of Nature by Hermes Trismegistus, given out by a genuine Freemason, ICH, describes the danger of over-augmenting the universal salt. But this multiplication cannot be carried out ad infinitum, but it attains completeness in the 9th rotation. For when this tincture has been rotated 9 times, it cannot be exalted any further, because it will not permit any further separation. For as soon as it perceives only the smallest degree of material fire, it goes instantly into a flux, and passes through the glass like hot oil through paper. In classifying the processes through which the chemical elements must pass before the hermetic medicine is produced, lack of uniformity in terminology is evidenced. For in the True Way of Nature, 7 stages are given, while in the Dictionnaire Mytho-Hermetici, 12 are noted. These 12 are linked with the signs of the zodiac in a manner worthy of consideration. And just off of the top, I'm going to go ahead and say this. If I was to choose, based solely on this, I would go with the True Way of Nature over the Dictionnaire Mytho-Hermetici. That is because 7 is a much more important number than 12. I know 12 constellations. I know 12 months. I know 12 tribes. I don't care. 7 is the number of creation. 8 is the actual number of manifestation, but 8 is the beginning of the new after the 7. So it can be left out or added in equally easily, right? It is the completion of the harmonic, and the beginning of the new is the 8th. 7 are the actual differing tones within the harmonic. So 7 steps makes much more sense than 12. And that is just based off of a true spiritual knowledge. I understand that's going to step on some different toes, but 7 is the number of, or 8 is the number of manifestation, but 8 is the completion of 7 and beginning of the new. I've gone through this extensively, and I will continue to do so. The True Way of Nature makes more sense than the dictionary Mytho-Hermetici. Alright, now these are linked with the zodiac in a manner worthy of consideration. 1. Aries, calcination. 2. Taurus, congelation. 3. Gemini, fixation. 4. Cancer, dissolution. 5. Leo, digestion. 6. Virgo, distillation. 7. Libra, sublimation. 8. Scorpio, separation. 9. Sagittarius, incineration. 10. Capricorn, fermentation. 11. Aquarius, multiplication. And 12. Pisces, projection. This arrangement opens an interesting field of speculation, which may be of great service if intelligently carried out. These 12 steps leading up to the accomplishment of the magnum opus are a reminder of the 12 degrees of the ancient Rosicrucian mysteries. To a certain degree, Rosicrucianism was chemistry theologized and alchemy philosophized. According to the mysteries, man was redeemed as the result of his passage in rotation through the 12 mansions of the heavens. The 12 processes by means of which the secret essence may be discovered remind the student forcibly of the 12 fellow craftsmen who are sent forth in search of the murdered builder of the universe, the universal Mercury. According to Solomon Tresmosin, the stages through which matter passes in its journey towards perfection are divided into 22 parts, each of which is represented by an appropriate drawing. There is a correlation there if you wish to draw it to the tarot, right? The 22 cards of the tarot is 3 divisions of 7 plus the 1 of the Fool. The 22 major cards of the tarot, well, there we go. There's an important connection between the 22 emblems of Trismosin, the 22 major cards of the tarot, and the 22 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. And I take exception with the Hebrew alphabet. These mysterious tarot cards are themselves an alchemical formula, if properly interpreted. Mental alchemy? Absolutely. I have 3 whole videos where I talk about that. How I believe that there is indeed a story of enlightenment to be found within the tarot. Now, I have detailed it in some great amount of detail. I believe that that is a real thing. That is part of mental alchemy, right? The overcoming of this particular realm of existence. But it can absolutely have other correlations that I don't have the keys to, right? We talk about keys all the time. I do have some keys, I don't have others. There is a possibility that there is something contained within the tarot related to alchemy that I do not know, but it is not self-evident. These mysterious tarot cards are themselves an alchemical formula if properly interpreted. As if to substantiate the claims of medieval philosophers that King Solomon was a master of alchemy, absolutely in order to, right? Not as if to substantiate, but in order to substantiate the claims of medieval philosophers that King Solomon was a master of alchemy, Dr. Franz Hartmann has noted that the much abused and misunderstood Song of Solomon is in reality an alchemical formula. That is one of the ones that we did not deal with because it is not necessarily YouTube friendly. The student of natural philosophy will immediately recognize the Dark Maid of Jerusalem, not as a person but as a material sacred to the sages. No. Dr. Hartmann writes, the Song of Solomon in the Old Testament is a description of the processes of alchemy. In this song, the subjectum is described in Cantae 1.5, the Lilium Artis in Cantae 2.1, and preparation and purification in Cantae 2.4, the fire in Cantae 2.7, and C, Cantae 4.16, the putrefaction in C 3.1, sublimation and distillation in C 3.6, coagulation and change of colors, CV 9 to 14, fixation, C 2 to 12, and C 8 4, multiplication, CV 6 7, augmentation and protection, C 8 8. And it jumps around an awful lot. A tiny particle of the philosopher's stone, if cast upon the surface of water, will, according to an appendix in the work on the universal salt by Herr von Welling, immediately begin a process of recapitulating, in miniature, the history of the universe. For instantly the tincture, like the spirits of Elohim, moves upon the face of the waters. A miniature universe is formed, which the philosophers have affirmed actually rises out of the water and floats in the air, where it passes through all the stages of cosmic unfoldment and finally disintegrates into dust again. Not only is it possible to prepare a medicine for metals, it is also possible to prepare a tincture for minerals, by means of which pieces of granite and marble can be turned into precious stones. Also, stones of inferior quality may be improved. I don't believe that. I mean, it's possible. I always hold out the possibility. I really do. I know I come off definite a lot of times when I say that, but I do hold the possibility. You can prove me wrong, but you have to prove me wrong. As one of the great alchemists fittingly observed, man's quest for gold is often his undoing, for he mistakes the alchemical processes, believing them to be purely material, or even material. He does not realize that the philosopher's gold, the philosopher's stone, and the philosopher's medicine exist in each of the four worlds, and that the consummation of the experiment cannot be realized until it is successfully carried on in four worlds simultaneously. I don't believe in the four worlds, right? I do in three, but not in four. There is a reason for that we have talked about in other places. They keep reiterating the four, and I was trying to ignore it, but they're not four worlds. There is the spiritual world, there is the physical incarnation, and then there is the world of the becoming, which is the transformation between the two. There is no fourth one. And the consummation of the experiment cannot be realized until it is successfully carried on in four worlds simultaneously according to one formula. Furthermore, one of the constituents of the alchemical formula exists only within the nature of man himself, without which his chemicals will not combine, and though he spends his life and fortune in chemical experimentation, he will not produce the desired end. This right here can very well be a key, right? I have a key. I talk about it often. You can get the key, but I cannot give you the key. I can tell you about it. I believe that there is indeed the ability to manipulate the electromagnetic forces of creation through force of will. I have done that in no small part in healing of myself. It is a empirically provable fact that there was a cyst in my throat and now there is not. Now you don't have to believe that I healed that. I do. It is through the power of God Almighty Himself, with no intervention in the middle, that it has happened. But it is me directing the energies according to ways that have been directly revealed to me. You don't have to believe that. I am not here to convince you of that, but it is truth. It is entirely possible to do that outside of yourself as well. I can see the subtle field in other things. You don't have to believe that. I am here to tell you, not to convince you. And I have effected changes in electromagnetic fields outside of myself, up to and including weather manipulation, which I will not duplicate, except under extreme duress for reasons that I have explained in other places. But I do believe that it is a possibility to do so. I believe that because I have done so. But there is no witnesses, there was no video. There are medical records for this part, but the other part is entirely based upon me relaying information. And so you don't have to believe it. You can take it with the exact same grain of salt that I take these with. Right? I do not necessarily believe everything, but I hold open the possibility for things. I have, on the path of enlightenment, been revealed some new things. It is not things that other people are talking about. I did not pull some of these things from other people. They are direct revelations to me. The 7 into 8 is a direct revelation. The 1, 3, 8 is directly revealed. The alignment of the chakras and how they work is directly revealed. The creation of the universe was directly revealed to me. You don't have to believe those things. I am here to tell you because I have been told to tell you. I'm not here to argue and fight and convince you. You either believe it or you don't. You either take me at my word or you don't. Don't. Do it yourself. Experiment yourself. It is entirely possible that if you follow the steps that I have outlined in various videos, you can do the things for yourself. Don't take it from me. I am not special. I am just someone who has had the will and the desire and the dedication to actually get it done. I actually do the prayers, fasting, and meditation. I actually do the practical practice of manipulating the energies. If you don't do those things, you will receive 0 results. Does not matter if you believe in them or not. If you are not actively working with them, then you're going to get nothing from them. But doing that will give you the tools to dismiss most of this. But not this particular part. If there was a way to actually transmute lead into gold outside of the way that they are doing it in the laboratories now, it would be due to this. It would be, in my estimation, through my lived experience, the manipulation of the electromagnetics by your will. But it takes great will to affect things outside of yourself. I'm going to let you know that now. And if you are not following the 8 laws of creation, and you are attempting to do any part of this, you will have severe repercussions. Again, you don't have to believe that. The 8 laws of creation are fundamental. They are true whether you believe them or not. The consequences of ignoring them will be true whether you believe it or not. I believe that is enough warnings. Y'all check back to the 8 laws of creation, and that makes my 3rd reference to it. Without which his chemicals will not combine, and though he spend his life and fortune in chemical experimentation, he will not produce the desired end. This is part of the reason why I want to actually play with alchemy, because I want to see if it is a possibility to do some of these things with the electromagnetic part involved. The paramount reason why the material scientist is incapable of duplicating the achievements of the medieval alchemist, although he follows every step carefully and accurately, is that the subtle element which comes out of the nature of the illuminated and regenerated alchemical philosopher is missing in his experimentation. On this subject, Dr. Franz Hartmann is in a footnote to his translation of extracts from Paracelsus clearly expresses the conclusions of a modern investigator of alchemical lore. I wish to warn the reader, who might be inclined to try any of the alchemical prescriptions, not to do so unless he is an alchemist, because, although I know from personal experience that these prescriptions are not only allegorically but literally true, and will prove successful in the hands of an alchemist, they would only cause a waste of time and money in the hands of one who has not the necessary qualifications. A person who wants to be an alchemist must have in himself the magnesia, which means the magnetic power to attract and coagulate invisible astral elements. And again, I know people are going to dismiss this part, but this is the part I do not dismiss. Simply because of experience. I cannot give you my experience. I can only relay it. But I believe this part more than anything else in this book. Or in this chapter. There are other things in this book that have been good. In considering the formula on the following pages, it must be recognized that the experiments cannot be successfully conducted unless the one who performs them be himself a magus. If two persons, one an initiate and the other unilluminated in the supreme art, were to set to work side by side using the same vessels, the same substances, and exactly the same modus operandi, the initiate would produce his gold, and the uninitiated would not. Unless the greater alchemy has first taken place within the soul of a man, he cannot perform the lesser alchemy in the retort. This is an invariable rule, although it is cunningly hidden in the allegories and emblems of Hermetic philosophy. Unless a man be born again, he cannot accomplish the great work. And if the student of alchemical formulae will remember this, it will save him much sorrow and disappointment. To speak of that part of the mystery which is concerned with the secret life principle within the actual nature of man is forbidden. For it is decreed by the masters of the art that each shall discover that for himself, and on this subject it is unlawful to speak at greater length. Well, I just did. Show up, pop up, I want to meet your masters. Bring them to me and let us have a discussion. I know, I'd have a tendency to step on toes when I am relaying information and when I am talking about things in which I know. It can come off a little bit cocky. It is not intentional. I do not apologize for it. However, I do indeed have a different knowledge than most people. Even the ones who call themselves enlightened are, in most cases, severely deceived. They have been led to believe that they have completed a process that they have only just begun. That is an unfortunate truth. Several of the control systems which purport to lead to enlightenment, not necessarily forgiveness by asking because of a ritual, right? Taking aside the ones that I have the exception with and I've taken the time to do the playlist for. Right? Take out Judaism, take out Christianity, take out Islam. Buddhists are close, but they have not actually gotten enlightenment. I know, I just stepped on a toe, right? Taoism, the same thing. Hinduism, same problem. There is a step missing, and I have yet to see it expressed. Now, we haven't done this for the Vedas. That is coming. We haven't done it for the Bhagavad Gita. That is coming. The various other books we are going to do this for. These are all groundworks, right? We are all laying out groundworks for all of these various playlists along this line. But I have something that I have not seen expressed anywhere else. When I am talking about the 8, that is something different than other people. When I talk about the various processes that I use, it is different than other people. Buddhism to use an example, is about exclusion. It is about denying the mortal that is not part of enlightenment. And if you think it is, you are wrong. There is nothing about exclusion in enlightenment. There is moderation. And by moderation, I mean the practical use of things, not the abuse of things, right? So saying that I will never get angry is not enlightenment. You will get angry. Learning to use your anger in a helpful manner is on the path to enlightenment. Saying that I'm never going to drink or I'm not going to eat meat. Oh my God, that one. I'm better than you because I am a vegetarian. I don't eat the body of another being. That is not enlightenment. I know, I step on toes. It is what it is. Enlightenment is a spiritual process that happens within you. You become something different, and it doesn't matter what you eat. It doesn't matter what you drink. It doesn't matter the words, really, that come out of your mouth, although certain words will be restricted from coming out of your mouth once you're enlightened. Right? You will not be able to do some things in good conscience once you have begun the process of enlightenment. Now, I say all of that. I am on a path. I am not some great, illuminated, enlightened master of all things. I am well on the path, though. I have done things like literal magic. You don't have to believe that, but it is true. Things that would have gotten me burnt at the stake several hundred years ago, or even sooner than that. But even that doesn't allow me to claim I am some master. Right? There are still challenges that I have. I am still on the path of mastery of several of the balances. But the mere fact that I know that they are balances already puts me a step ahead than every Buddhist out there. Every single one of them. I don't care how far along on the path you think you are. If you were following it as I understand it, and I could be wrong, we haven't done this yet, right? I thought I understood the Bible until we did the Bible study. I thought I understood a lot of things until we actually dug into the meanings and the words. And so I could be wrong in my understanding of Buddhism. But if it is excluding the things, it is doing it wrong, period, the end. It really is that fundamentally you are doing it wrong. If you were saying, oh, you can't eat an animal or you are not enlightened, you were doing it wrong. If you were saying you cannot get wrathful and you're not enlightened, you are doing it wrong. It is not true. You are speaking this truth. As far as it being unlawful to disseminate this information, I don't care. I have been given leave to do what I am doing, and anybody that has an exception with that can take it up with a higher authority. You can come to me. It is going to make zero difference. The worst you can do is end my mortal coil. And guess what? That is not a bad thing. I do not fear it in the way that y'all do. I do not seek the eternal life of this mortal body. I don't. If I go today, it's fine. If it's 50 years from now, it is equally fine. I am perfectly happy if I go home or if I stay. Those two things do not matter. And so the worst that you can do is nothing to me. The worst that can happen to me is for me not to walk this path in an authentic way, to disseminate as freely as I can possibly conceive the things that are true. There are, however, some things that I have been forbidden, right? Expressly denied the ability to relay. One of those is that word, right? One of those is the identifier by which I will know others who are on the same wave I am. There is something by which I can identify someone else who has been inducted into the secret society that I have. But as far as I know, I'm the only one in it. It is not something that I can give you. I cannot even put you any farther on that path than I already have. But everything that I have done has come from external, like it is an external thing. I was inducted into the order of Melchizedek, but it was outside of myself. Well, you just did that for yourself. No, I have aphantasia. I cannot willfully create anything. I cannot close my eyes and visualize a blade of grass, a box, a sheet of paper, anything. That is outside of the scope of what I can do. Here recently, like in the last week, I have been given another key. It is the key of visualization. So for the first time in my entire life, I have been able to see something when I close my eyes intentionally. But I still have no control over it. The things that I see through the projection, that is the key that I was given, I don't have control over. It is things I see that are outside of me. I cannot change them. I cannot direct them. I cannot make it different. So when I say that something was revealed to me directly, it is outside of my ability to fool myself into thinking that. I cannot say I had this vision, but maybe I created it, because I cannot create it. Even now with this key, I cannot create it. I cannot visualize the thing that I want and call it into existence. It doesn't happen for me. My process is a little bit different. We talk about my boxes, right? It is the concept that I hold, not a visual representation of it. Some people can visually represent and call for manifestation. I cannot. I say that to say that I have directly been told to reveal things. The only things that I am holding back are the secrets of clarification that if I did relay, somebody could misuse. The identifiers are known. If you are in the order of Melchizedek and we haven't met, you know what it is. You already know the word. You already know the confirmation. And if we ever meet, it is not something that will be said. That's all I can give you. That's as far as I can go with that. But that is the end of the law restricting me from dispensing anything to you. When I talk about the electromagnetic manipulation, I mean it because I did it. You don't have to believe that. It is conspiratorial in my conspiratorial mind. I am perfectly fine with being called crazy. I do magic. I'm fine with that. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. I am sure we will have more to say when we get to the theory and practice of alchemy part 2. But for now, this is probably going to piss off enough people. I really am not trying to get people mad. It is just part of the process. Sorry. Hopefully I brought a little bit of enlightenment and not too much confusion to a series of somewhat difficult topics. I understand that I have some unconventional beliefs and that I have a tendency to step on some toes when I relay those beliefs. It is not intentional, but I do not apologize for it. If you like what I'm doing over here, let me know down below. Give me a like, share, and a sub. Throw me a comment. And if you agree or disagree, as long as it remains respectful, it gets to remain up. And if you really like what I'm doing over here, hit me with that super thanks, because I am not a communist. To the crew, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate every single minute that you are here with me, and I am praying for you every single day. Until next time, I love you. God loves you. You are perfect, whole, and complete just the way that you are. And this has been Pitt State. Peace.